I just want to kind of note two couple things as we begin. One, I just want to thank the amazing Abraham, who is helping to not only run the screen here, but has been instrumental in helping to get all of us organized. And so, you know, however you want to lend some kudos or some high fives in the chat or whatever like that, all of those things are well deserved because we are so very, very grateful to have him here with us. And so, Leonora, did you have a question? I see you just raised your hand. Or are you trying to give like a thanks to Abraham?
Yes, so thanks to Abraham.
Okay, great. That's perfect. So he is wonderful, and we're very, very grateful to him for helping to put together and get us organized for today. And I do think that we do have a pretty fun and interactive meeting for us. And the second thing I just want to note before we get going is that I will be flying solo today. Our co-chair, Ashley St. Thomas, she is busy doing other busy, incredible, amazing work out there. She sends her greetings, but she is unable to join us today, so it will just be myself. I am just a poor substitute for Ashley and her amazing work, but I'm so grateful that we are all here together. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to begin as we see with our agenda over here with our roll call, and then do a quick agenda review and then dive into our meeting. Part of our practice with our roll call is literally me opening up the little like bar on the side where it lists everyone's names. So I'm just going to go ahead and start calling on folks and just asking folks to say hello, just to confirm your attendance for today. And it looks like we're going to go in alphabetical by first name order. And with that, I'm going to start with Adele. Adele, do you want to say hello?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Adele, and I am with the FAA Policy Support Team.
Thank you, Adele. I appreciate that. And next we have April.
Sorry, April Jones with the Department of Economic Security, Office of Community Engagement. I am the Senior Community Engagement Manager.
Perfect. Thank you, April. And next we have Kara. Or it could be Kara as well. I just realized I could go two different pronunciations, and please correct me. Okay. Kara, we'll come back to you in a second. Next we have Erin.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good to see you all. I'm Erin Rosinski with the Department of Health Services in our Bureau of Nutrition and Physical Activity. I am the office chief for our Office of Community Innovations, which is where SNAP-Ed, Empower, and a whole bunch of other programs reside. But of importance to this group is probably most SNAP-Ed.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Erin. Appreciate that. Next, we have Gloria, who is representing some team attire, probably for some game that's happening later on. But Gloria, it's good to see you. Want to introduce yourself?
I am gladly supporting the LA Dodgers. For those of you who do not know me or know that I'm born and raised in LA, go Dodgers. I don't introduce Marina because she's going to share on another team that we really don't want to hear about today. So Gloria Garcia Hernandez, Hunger Relief Program Manager. Thank you for joining today.
Perfect. Thank you, Gloria. And next we have Jessica.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Jason, I'll one-up you. For some reason, my camera doesn't want to work today, so happy Friday. I'm Jessica Herbert. I'm the Public Policy Manager at the Arizona Food Bank Network, and I'll have to pass along your kind words at the beginning to Ashley. So if you have any questions from the Arizona Food Bank side, I'm happy to kind of fill in for her today. Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Yeah, Jessica, just tell her all the times I messed up, and that'll be perfect. So, so with that, we have Jessie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessie Gruner with Pinnacle Prevention. And if I turn my camera on, it turns all yours off. So I'd much rather look at you all than look at me. So my bandwidth's not great today. So sorry about that. But lovely to see some new people and some friends in the room. So thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Jesse. And next we have Laura.
Like me, Laura. So I've been with a couple other Lauras today. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Laura Walsh. I am the TFAP and CSFP program specialist for Arizona. I work under Gloria, and I work with food banks to manage those programs on the state end. So hello and welcome to any newbies here.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. Next we have Lenora.
Hi, I'm Leonora Renda. I'm the clinical nutrition manager at Valleywise. I also work with behavioral health as well as dialysis.
Thank you, Leonora. Appreciate that. Next we have Marina.
Hi, everyone. Marina Quiros with the Hunger Relief Program, and I am the Hunger Relief Program coordinator. I'm gladly supporting the New York Yankees, fourth gen, or actually third gen Yankees fan. So just wanted to share that information. Go Yankees. But glad to be here and definitely welcome to the newbies onto our hat call. So glad to be here to support.
That's right. Well, the whoever wins the series has to run the next meeting. So congratulations to your teams. So just joking. Perfect. And with that, we have Michelle.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Michelle Merkley. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Yuma Community Food Bank. Nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you, Michelle. And now we have Summer.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I am watching a hound dog right now, and he's not happy about me in this meeting. So I was trying to find a more quiet space. My name's Summer Grandy. I'm the Client Advocacy Manager at Flagstaff Family Food Center.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you. And we're going to try one more time. Kara Alexander, are you there?
Hi, I am. I'm sorry. I had someone come into my office right when I clicked on for the meeting. I'll be on for a short little while, and then I had messaged Abraham too. Thank you so much for all your support. But I have something right in the middle of this meeting, so I'll only be here at the beginning, and if it's still going on, again at the end. But I work for the Arizona Department of Education, and I serve as the Deputy Associate Superintendent for Health and Nutrition Services, overseeing the variety of USDA's child nutrition programs, farm to school, summer meals, and so on.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And to last, but certainly not least, myself, I'm Jason Matthews. I work over at the Maricopa County Human Services Department and have the honor of serving as one of your co-chairs. So thank you all so much for being here. I think we have a really great agenda, and we're going to do a quick little agenda review here. We have not only as we're covering the agenda item number 1, that's the item we're on now. We are going to do a couple of polls, and very specifically just getting some feedback on our meeting cadence. We have not had the opportunity of asking folks this question in a while, and we thought it was a really good time just to talk about and ask about frequency and also the day of week. So we're going to start off with that. Then we're going to do a couple of breakout sessions. So the first one is going to have we're going to spend about 20 or so minutes asking y'all around the question on how to include clients in the conversation and start collaborating. We're going to do some breakout, and then we'll come back and kind of debrief as a whole group. But that has been a topic that we have been talking about, at least for the last couple of meetings, on this how to include more of these stakeholders within our conversations. I'm really looking forward to that discussion. You may have saw on the note that went out, we did have originally the intention of having a guest speaker for today, but unfortunately life happens and we were unable to get that done. No worries. We will make sure just to give some time back to all of you for today, and we'll make up for it at our next meeting in January. But that will also give us a little bit more time to go right into our second breakout session, which is just getting some feedback on our HACC agenda priorities and just asking, some feedback and some ideas looking forward to next calendar year. And then we will honor our practice of having a public forum at the end with our remaining time. This is an opportunity for any questions or any announcements or anything like that, which is, I think it was a really fun part. I also just want to note that especially for folks that are they may need to leave or they may need to cut out a little bit early. We totally understand. Some of these questions that we have, we still would love your feedback on them. So, you know, we still have the chat function that's available for folks. You can also email Abraham or myself if you have any kind of thoughts, but we want to make sure to grab that feedback and those questions and, you know, anything you have for us for these breakout groups, because it's going to be really instrumental for our planning for next year. So with that, we are going to start off with our meeting cadence and that agenda item. And we have a couple of polls here. And it looks like hopefully everyone just saw that a new poll has launched on the frequency of meetings. And so really easy. I think everyone has been able to practice some virtual polls with folks. But if everyone could take a second to review the question that just popped up around the frequency of meetings, and just to, you know, indicate your preference. Right now, we are on a quarterly basis for these meetings. And I think that, you know, there's some pluses and minuses to all of these, but we would just like to get your feedback. So go ahead and click on them and vote. And you'll notice that once you vote, you'll kind of see some real time as the votes are being tallied in. So thank you for those that are already voting. If we'd like to have as much participation as we possibly can, because this will really help with our scheduling. And so please make sure to fill that out. And then you will note that as soon as you vote on that particular question, and you'll see the results as they're coming in, the second question will come up, which is the day of the week. Our apologies, we did not include Saturday and Sunday. I know many of you were going to be disappointed about that, but we kept it to the work week. We just want to know which day works best for you. Obviously, we've been working on Fridays for some time, but we just wanted to see if that still works or if another day works best. So once you vote with that, you also get to the real-time feedback on those. And then after you vote on that one, you're going to see some real-time results. A third question, and this is, I think, the last one that we have here, is just the time of day. Are you a morning person, around noonish, you know, around lunchtime, or the afternoon? Go ahead and indicate your preference there. And that will be the last one. So we're going to give another minute or so for folks to indicate their votes for those three questions. Again, that is the frequency of meetings at the top. The second question is the day of the week. And the third question is time of day. And look at that, time of day is just really like a neck and neck kind of thing. That's pretty good. So all this information is going to be really, really helpful. I am literally checking my watch here. We're going to give it another 20 or so seconds for folks to capture their votes. I do appreciate this feedback. I do have a question for you, Abraham. Do you need to do a screenshot to capture this, or does this get downloaded on your side?
I get a summary at the end of this meeting in an email.
Perfect. Great. That's good to know. And with that, it's been that 20 seconds. If you haven't voted on these three questions, please make sure to get them in. But I just want to thank everyone for indicating your votes. So far, it looks like that for the frequency, that the quarterly cadence that we're currently doing is still working for folks. That's pretty obvious with those 9 votes that came in. Groovy. For the day of the week, Friday, the day that we're still on, seems to be working for folks with those votes as well. So sounds good. And then for the time of day, it does look like noon is kind of edging out afternoon just by a little bit. That's probably honoring kind of like where we are right now with a start time of about 12:30. But we really appreciate this opportunity just to confirm. We never want to assume any of these dates or times. So this is very, very helpful. And I do thank you all for your participation. So perfect. Well, with that, is there any questions on this before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and go to our third agenda item, which is going to be breakout session number 1. And Abraham, I know that we have listed 20 minutes here, but since we have kind of a smaller kind of group, could we, but I still like the idea of doing 2 groups because we get a little bit of a smaller interaction, but can we do a 10-minute breakout session for breakout session number 1 and see how it goes, and then we can do that whole group debrief of about the last like another 5 minutes or so. So maybe a total time around that 15 minutes. But can we start off with a breakout group of 10 minutes per, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. And you'll see that question that we have here, that how to include clients in the conversation, start collaborating. And I know that I'm going to be in one other group. And so if I'm not in that group, if I can have a volunteer that kind of makes sure to kind of pushes the conversation along. And again, we just want to hear from everyone on your thoughts around this particular question.
And I'll be flickering between rooms as well to make sure that
Perfect.
if there's anything that we can do, if there are any technical issues, or if there's any facilitation that can be done, I'll definitely help out.
Perfect. And Abraham, will in your hands to break us up.
All right, rooms have started.
Thank you. And that was a rush. That was fantastic. I love the engagement that we had with that. So, all right. So that was a very engaging 10 minutes with folks. Aaron, you were like literally like in mid conversation as you were sharing that information. Hopefully you can continue to maybe chat and send that information over to, I believe it was Jessica you were kind of sharing that saw a great little tidbit on some infographics and things like that. So thank you all for that incredible participation. That was fantastic. What I'd like us to do is to debrief back so we can kind of hear from each of the other groups. And what might be helpful is maybe we'll go with the second group to go, because I was in the first group. I did group one, I did take notes, so I'm happy to kind of like share out. And for anyone, if there was not the opportunity to share like something that you want to share, like in your kind of your debrief with your small group, now is an opportunity to also just share with a wider audience. Okay, so I want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity to be heard in this space. I'm just so excited that people were really excited about this question. That just makes me really happy. So let's go with group two. We'll have them kind of debrief to the other first. So group two, who would like to share out?
I can act as kind of a facilitator here. So April she started off with a very interesting point. So the town hall is an open resource for anyone looking to organize a town hall style, not congregate, but like a collaborative group with anyone that they're looking for.
Okay.
And then at the very end, actually, Leonora had, I believe it was Leonora, she had a very interesting question about what we can do to target Hispanic populations. We noticed that people were not as willing to speak about whether they were in need. Could you expand on that, Leonora? It was kind of like at the very end.
Yes, you know, we do have a very high Hispanic population in our dialysis center. And I notice every time we go to chart that they say there's no economic need, but we know that there's a need for those patients. And it's difficult to get them into the services. So we're hoping that we can find ways to help them, especially around food, so that they could have the right food for their diet. And then access to that. A lot of them live with the family. Some are young, some are old. So we have all different age groups, but we do put information up about food banks and other services, but I don't feel like they always take advantage of that.
Okay, that's great. Other debriefing points that from that group number two?
So Summer mentioned a client leadership council. And then Michelle talked about the Feeding America Community Accelerator. I think that's what it was, the data walk, which sounded really interesting as well. And
great.
Summer apparently just finished doing a data walk, so we have a resource. Okay.
Wonderful. I love data walks. They're great. Or yeah, those are. But I'm a nerd, so I love that stuff. So, a self-loving nerd, I guess. So, but other thoughts from or feedback from group number two?
We also had an idea. So I think it was the data walk, but I thought that was very interesting. It was like an open board where people could place, for example, note cards. Not with necessarily criticism, just input on initiatives. If we were missing some perspective, or if people had questions, it was just a public place to put those up. Everyone could very easily engage with whoever was present. They could review it afterward. They could see how things fit together relative to the big picture.
Perfect. That's great. Those are fun ideas. I really like that. Wonderful insights. Any other things from group number two that folks, especially from that group, would like to share with the larger audience? Okay. Well, great job. A nice little round of applause for group number 2, for that. So great job for everyone. And we'll go ahead and go over to group number 1 for that. And again, I took some notes down as I was capturing some of the great stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and share those notes. And then folks from group number 1, please tell me what I missed or add on to that, please. But some of the things that we captured from group number 1 was there is value in engaging with clients that are using these services. We started kind of going into some options or some models of how that could look like. And that could be like, other organizations will have like advisory councils, or they'll even have like parent ambassadors. They're just like little ways of trying to like engage with those folks. I really like the idea of making sure that we are always asking the question of like, what do we want folks to engage in? Like, what's the question? And so making that really center of the work so we get something that's very specific. Even the idea of potentially using some focus groups to maybe explore or get that conversation going. And also, using this as an opportunity of like, how can some of these, like whether it's these ambassadors or councils or even some of these focus groups, use to uplift certain populations that maybe we want to focus in on. And one example was even like how to do outreach to older adults, for example. And so like, I really thought that those were some really important insights around this particular question. Group 1 and those members of group 1, what did I miss? Is there anything else that I missed, or anything else that maybe you're inspired to kind of share along with what was captured? Okay, great. Then I'll ask the question for the larger group again, as far as like any kind of like, is there anything that you heard from the report out from group 2 or the report out from group 1 that you have a question on, or something that maybe you just want to make a comment on, or is there anything else that you want to add to this topic of discussion?
The only thing I would add is that when we're interacting with folks from the community and asking for kind of lived experience, to make sure that we add correct compensation for that knowledge.
Yes.
Very wonderful, great point. Thank you, Summer. Absolutely agree. People's time is valuable, and their experience has a value to that. It's a wonderful way of demonstrating respect, to those folks. So Summer, thank you very much for doing that. And I know that sometimes that can get tricky, especially when working with government entities and beyond. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of expertise around this table to where we can probably figure out how to do it. So, and again, to properly honor those folks. Great, great insight. Go ahead, April.
Jason, when we were doing focus groups, one of the things that we checked and verified with the AG's office is the state can can compensate. It has to be within whatever the market rate is or something like that. But none of us have the funding for that, but we legally can compensate.
That's really good to know. I really appreciate that. I'm to give a dated reference that has likely been amended and changed over time. But I remember when I was at the United Way, we were kind of going back and forth and whether or not by compensating them, would they need a 1099 and was a taxable income and like a whole thing. So it was that I'm hoping that, other organizations have figured that out to where that to me kind of seemed a little bit of just a barrier that was probably unneeded at the time, but I can see the rationale, but I think there's other ways of doing that work. So, but thank you for bringing up those examples. Anything else? Any other comments or thoughts around this question before we move on?
I think one last piece to add is also making sure that as we engage community members, we're really clear with them and transparent about how their input is going to be used. Is it going to HAC, and what will HAC do with it? Is it going all the way to Director Rogers, or is it going, I think just being really clear so that they know how the information they share and their input will be used. And then being able to share that back with them as well. We took this, we shared it here. This was the outcome of the input and where it landed. So that we're honoring not only their time, but making sure we're clear about how we're utilizing their input.
That's an excellent point, Erin. And you mentioned sort of that feedback loop, which is huge too, because if you close that feedback loop, then people are more likely to engage again.
Correct. Great point, Erin. Great point, April. I'm also just a really big fan of one of the best ways you can demonstrate respect is also by setting very clear expectations. And just because, we want to get some feedback from some folks, but sometimes we can't do all those things. Right. And, that's we want to be very clear on what can be done and also what can't be done, even things like timetables and that kind of stuff like that. But I think as long as we can frame things, reinforce things, and maybe say it one more time and really just demonstrate that respect with really clear expectations, I think that's really, really helpful. So anything else to add to this question? All right, hearing none, thank you. We're going to go ahead and close out this question for this breakout session. Wonderful job. That was fantastic. I really got a lot out of that, and hopefully y'all heard a lot from that as well. So thank you. We're going to go ahead and keep pushing on, through our agenda here. We're going to go to the second breakout session question. And as you saw on the agenda, what we're looking at is really thinking about, and then all of this is for planning for next year, or next calendar year, and really just thinking about those HAC agenda priorities for 2025. And, I know that this has always been we really want to use this as an opportunity for what are those focus areas that we really want to emphasize and really to lift up. One of the things that becomes really helpful, and I appreciate April, thank you for that agreement, is that, and I agree, but one thing why this is really helpful is that this also helps to drive, not only what kind of conversations to have, but this also helps with things such as with our last question we just had, that idea of if we're going to engage a group, what are we going to engage them with, right? And so if a possible agenda priority could be around more efficiency in emergency food distribution, for example. Great. Okay. Well, that's a focus that we really want to focus in on, because as we feel that that's really important to lift up to Director Rogers and in partnership with everyone around the table and DES and all those state agencies. Great. How does that then translate back over to a client that's participating in this, right? So that's an example of how we can use these kind of priorities, and then have it filter on how to engage and to connect people with that question. It also just helps us very bluntly on seeing if we need to bring in an outside speaker on that topic, right? To help to align up some guests. It could also potentially even help to line up, potential other members or potential members to this group as well, right? Because if there's a really big topic on this area, perhaps this group wants to do more or to learn more around how food insecurity impacts those individuals aged 60 and above, for example, in that home delivered meal space. Great. Do we have the right people around the room, or the table to even have that conversation? Because we can always bring in those experts, but maybe it'll be important to have maybe a provider of that food, or maybe someone who represents, in-home case management with those folks. And so that's just a big opportunity for us to begin to think about what are those, key things that will be helpful for us to move forward. So April had a wonderful idea to have just one session for this. Sounds great. Let's go ahead and stay in one session. But let's also, and I'll do a little, do a quick time check on my wristwatch here to sort of give us start off with a good like 10 or so minutes, but I want to make sure we're getting around the room to hear some voices on this. And I'm going to go ahead and pose that question. And when you're ready, go ahead and either raise your hand or just unmute yourself. But what are some agenda priorities that we can start focusing on for 2025?
Jason, something I'm trying to think of what direction hack is going into, right? And I think for our new people, what is a purpose of snack? So snack hack, all these hacks, to help us identify what agenda items would be helpful. Other than providing policy updates, I think that's very important, right? To our community and our partners during the hack meetings. But I'll see what part of these calls also includes our food bank. So maybe the communication with our food banks and what the purpose of hack is to advise the director. So that's something that we need to focus on, and to say, what are we going to work on to advise the director on items that the hack is interested to advise her on.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's another way of framing the question. I like that. So, thoughts?
I think I agree with where Gloria's at. I think I'm trying to figure out, the intent of hack is to inform the DES director on issues of hunger, correct?
Right.
So I think maybe it's trying to discern if we want to advise DES on challenges and needs coming from the community. I think that looks one way.
Mm-hmm.
I think a different option or priority would be advising the director on projects or opportunities or needs happening across agencies and the nonprofit sector related to hunger.
Mm-hmm.
And those feel very different. I think one is positioning DES potentially to respond to the needs of community. If hack said, we're going to get together, we're going to recruit and host these kind of focus groups or town halls to gather input on what needs of community are, I think that is one piece, versus maybe engaging state agencies so that DES could understand or get a better understanding or have an awareness of what's happening in the hunger landscape. When I think about the people on this call and the work that is happening at Pinnacle, and what are the important issues happening in Double Up Food Bucks, and what are we taking to the legislature, and what's happening from our perspective in early care and education at ADHS, or what's happening within WIC, and what are the big changes that might be impacting clients, and what's happening with the snack, and what's happening over at ADE and school meal programs, and where are those priorities, so that DES leadership understands the landscape of the work happening to reduce hunger. I think those are two very different strategies that we could do work in both. Those are just two ideas that I'm thinking about. How could we best utilize our time together, our resources, in a way that gets us to that end point of informing the DES director on issues of hunger?
Yeah, and Erin, I definitely agree with you, and I think that where I'm curious, like, how much of what you just said are nouns and how much of them are verbs, right? And where I'm going with that is that I'm definitely hearing topics, right? Things, right? But then I'm also hearing process. And you know, and I think both are relevant. I'm not saying either one, or I think they're both like critical, and it to introduce on top of that is also potentially where are the gaps where things aren't being done. Okay. And so like where you were talking about in your example around, you know, briefing the DES director on where other state agencies and those things are kind of like happening. To me, that's, I'm kind of thinking of SNAC, right? I think SNAC kind of does that kind of coordination with, it's around a topic. So there, it's a very, you know, specific area. But like there is a lot of that coordination, what this agency is doing, what this state agency is doing, yada, yada, yada. And I think that helps, you know, this is, you know, kind of like, this is the status update. These are the projects that are moving forward. Those are opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a gross oversimplification. I know that SNAC does more than that, but that's just how my brain's processing. But I could also think of like, where are those other gaps, right? On like, is it really truly is those challenges and needs? Right. And it could be, and that's fantastic, but even like we can kind of go even further, or what else? And again, I'm free thinking with others. And so please, others chime in, other thoughts around this question. I'm taking notes. So what do we think?
Well, Jason, I kind of like where you're going with that. Like, where are the gaps? Because that's something our agency strategic plan is going to be looking at as well. But Aaron, when you were talking, I also was thinking, I mean, this group is to advise the DES director, but that's information that the other agency directors would want, I would assume would want also. So how do we ensure the information is getting shared with all the agencies that are involved in this work?
Yeah, that's a good point, April. And that can also be like embedded with the agenda, like I'm really like Virgo-y right now, so my apologies everyone. But like as we talk about the nouns, what we want to get done, but then like the verbs, like to me, like there could be some process improvements on even how we capture information in these meetings from a presentation and then disseminate that, not just or at least have it available. So it's not just going to the DES director, but then it's available for leadership in other state agencies and even beyond, quite frankly, right? And maybe that's a process improvement. And it's always easy to say like, well, maybe we post our minutes or we post the recording of the video on a website. And again, I'm grossly oversimplifying things. That's probably not what we can do, but I like where you're going, April, and like, how can we get this information out to other folks as well? So, other thoughts?
And Gloria, not trying to give you extra work. So if you need our help on that, we are available.
No extra work. And I'll share because I'll share with the group. This advisory council happens because of a bill that was written like 800 years ago, right? From like
the 90s feel like 800 years ago. Yeah.
So we have evolved within even state agencies in different work groups, in different, we've evolved in the Food Network or area on different, we've grown so much, right? Where I feel that verbiage in our Senate bill with our funding or in that House bill or legislative bill has to be updated to read a little bit different because it holds us accountable, DES, the Hunger Advisory Council, accountable to make sure these meetings are happening. But how helpful are they? Because a lot of the people on the call today or on the call are involved in all these other work groups that have been created since after this bill was written, right? Not that these meetings are not effective, but I think I've always said, like, how can we incorporate it with SNAC? How can we And I worked with our policy team to see how we can update the language. Is there a way? Is there a possibility? So if there's anything that you can do, April, to help us work on that, I would definitely be interested. But my understanding is we are not allowed to make any changes or any recommendations on that bill. But then we have to educate our leaders that it's time to update that language that indicates this is what will happen. And we hold these meetings, but we're already having a lot of other like policy updates are happening under their 2 or 3 meetings that I'm part of. So I'm struggling a little bit today. Sorry, I think Jason and I are probably in the same space right now to say, how do we engage with the purpose that we have to inform our director and about specific strategies that were required in the bill that was written like many years ago, right? So I apologize. I'm not being very helpful today because my mind is spinning in reverse and going, 1,000 miles per minute. But April, if we can have a discussion post this meeting, would include just Jason and us, so we can. I've tried internally to see how can we update. If there's any way that we can update the bill language because it comes every year, then we probably either expand or move HAC into a different direction.
Now that makes sense. And there are people here that can do things that we as DES employees cannot. So
yeah. And Gloria, I definitely hear you, and I think of like, and we've had this conversation before, and I think that's and just to be on the record, I think that the focus would benefit if this was expanded, quite frankly, or modified to reflect the reality of DES, of what their current mission is. And as you indicated, this is just a thing that happens to be a law that we have to follow, right? And from an outsider perspective, like on the other groups, Gloria, that you're involved in, do those have the same kind of mandate as HAC?
SNAC does. SNAC does through. So SNAC was created through USDA and the funding that they get through. So SNAC does, but the reporting and the flexibility, I'll say it, Aaron, I can say we have more flexibility in SNAC than with HAC, right? HAC is very specific. You're going to work on this to do this, right? So I think that's where I feel that in speaking with our policy team, that's what I was requesting. Is there any flexibility? Can we request any flexibility to make those changes? We even, April, you mentioned, we have state and non-state employees that can advocate. They're part of SNAC as well, the work groups, right? So I think we have an opportunity to educate our leaders and to be our voice with our, I call it across the street because before we used to be across the street, to see if there's any way. And I will, no, it's not additional work for me, April. I just need some support. Maybe you and I can meet to see how we can collectively work together. And maybe, not that I want to get rid of HAC, but how can we make it more effective and beneficial for our community, right? For our partners statewide. If we're just advising, Jason, you brought up a great point. There's a need for distribution of, let's say, Navajo Nation, and that the advisory board, we work on it for 4 months, 5 months to put together this plan. The food banks will probably take care of it in a month. So by the time we advise the director about this concern that the HAC does, it's already taken care of, 3 months ago. So that's my thinking around HAC. I would like for it to evolve into the 2020, into 2024, what we're doing now. So
And I think that Gloria, that I do want to reflect. I want to be on the record to say, like, I fully support you on that. I think I've even been on the record that, like, you know, if this particular group has does need to exist anymore because it doesn't, like, its purpose has been fulfilled, great. We serve at the pleasure of the director. And if we have to continue to get meeting, let's make sure it's worth our value, right? And because that's, and I think that that's what we're hoping for. Erin, you have your hand raised, and thank you for the extra information in the chat box, by the way.
Yeah, I have 2 additional thoughts around maybe some priorities. I know the DES director is incredibly busy with a lot of big projects happening, but does she have any interest? I know she also has a strong hunger background, so it may be, we may just be in an interesting time where HAC is not as critical because the DES director happens to have a very strong background in hunger related issues. If that changes, right, that might look different, but maybe within each administration or when there's a new director, HAC sets a process to have a brief interview, ask them a few questions, of some way to figure out what are the key issues that they want to know about. What are the key issues that are important to them? Because then HAC can execute and help find that information out so that we're not left wondering, like, I think it could be a 2-way street, especially if we're struggling to identify that next step or that, like, action item. That could be an option. And then shifting a little further, and again, this might be a little tough, but I'm going to just throw it out there as an ask or a potential opportunity. When you guys were talking about gaps earlier, I think something that feels like a bit of a gap is a space where we coordinate our hunger-related asks of the legislature and within our agencies. Because a lot of our programs have a state match requirement. I know ADE has some, DES has some, ADHS might have some, Pinnacle has some, and I know it's come up a couple times in the snack where we've talked about, well, we don't want to be competing at the legislature for the same dollars for, let's say, reduced price meals funding and Pinnacle, like, double up food bucks funding, right? Like, yeah. And I don't know, it has felt like, I'm not sure who coordinates that, right? Like, AFBN has a pulse on some of their asks. The DES director is going to put some of their funding related asks in an appropriations, like DES budget. And again, that gets a little nuanced in terms of, like, we're talking budgets and requests, and it could be a little bit, I don't want to say contentious, but, like, those could be some hard conversations. But if we're talking gaps that exist, and maybe it's, I want to also acknowledge it could be my own, like, learning curve gap. Like, maybe there is a plan and a coordination that we're just not a part of at DHS, because it doesn't, like, we don't have any asks of the legislature right now, but HAC could be well positioned to help us understand HRP has this state match requirement and Double Up has this one and WIC Farmers Market has this one, and all these things, as we want to also push for, like, free school meals for all. Like, is this a space to coordinate a strategy around what we want to fund, where our programs are at, and what that looks like, so that we're speaking as a more one coordinated voice?
Erin,
I just outside of our realm a little bit, because I'm at a government agency as well, but I think I'm aware that people need asks of the governor and the legislature, and I don't know if we're doing that in as well of a coordinated way as we could.
Yeah, and Erin, I love that idea. I'm going to channel my inner Ashley, and it actually would just be like 1,000% endorsing that idea or versions of that. I think she's asked for versions of that in the past, which I think is just a really great, idea. And I just also like Jesse, your note in there as far as, like, leading updated on the statute of the policy language. And I think that, like, in another way of framing this breakout question is, like, it's a visioning question, right? It's not just like, what do you want to work on, but like what's the vision of what we do, right? And how do we spend our time doing this work? And I think examples like that, Erin, I think that that's really important, because even though, like, that is something to kind of, like, to make it all about me, because that's all about me all the time. Sorry, only child over here. But like in that kind of space, like it's very easy, like where I don't necessarily, you know, from my job, like in Maricopa County, it's going to be less for me to participate, but that's where I can add value and helping ask questions to ask, like, what does that stuff mean? Like, why is that, like, why would that ask or that coordination of that particular thing, like, how would that be a big deal to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, right? Or to whatever. But that's where I think we can, like, work with each other in this group to help vet and ask those kind of questions to where what comes out of it is a really great, well thought of product that then when, if it is brought up, you know, to the powers that be, it's something that has been vetted and we can actually leverage all the talent and expertise that's in this group and beyond to really come up with a better like ask, right? That is, and then it's coordinated and also we can explain it. So where it's like, it's not something like, well, you know, DES is asking for this and, you know, the Department of Health is asking for this and I don't know what that is, but whatever, we'll just see what comes out. It's more of like, no, I know exactly what they're talking about because we talked about it, right? And then we could become better advocates for each other's work in that same space. And I can see that same kind of like process to where if I'm at Maricopa County and I'm working with some of my other county colleagues when it comes to the issue of you know, hunger related work, which in my experience, we have never done at this meeting. Okay. And like, we do a lot of hunger stuff, right? We just don't talk about it. Not at this meeting. Right. But that could be an opportunity. And again, these are like, all of this, I think, helps with that kind of visioning of like what the future of an updated language for like what HACC could be, because there could be a role, right? Because a lot of those county governments, like again, this very specific example, just in my department, we do Head Start, early Head Start, and we do home delivered meals for seniors. So just in my shop, we're feeding thousands of people every day, right? Now, how are we coordinating that stuff? We don't talk about it, but we could, you know? And there could be other opportunities in that. So I think there's a lot of opportunities in that. Again, thinking about like those gaps, how do we coordinate around those government asks? And I'll finally say that I'm going to shut up here because I think I'm making a speech and I don't mean to, but like that, I do love the idea of continuously engaging with the director and asking these questions. And I will just note, and it's already been said, I think it's just because the combination that Director Rogers is super busy and she has a background in the stuff. So it's been harder to engage. But in the 3 or 4 times I've literally talked about HACC with Angie, she's like, well, what do you guys want to do? Kind of like Friday night at my household, we're both hungry, and I'm just like, what do you want to eat tonight? Oh, I don't know. I'm hungry. Well, I'm hungry too. And then 20 minutes pass. So, but I think, Aaron, to your little, I just want to just lift up your great idea, having a process in place to where whether it's a new director that comes in, a new governor that comes in, maybe new legislators that come in, maybe new key staff members at other agencies, and we have like, hey, welcome. We have some questions that we'd like to ask you so we know what the heck is some of your priorities. And then we can also share some of our stuff, but then there's a feedback loop that's there. So again, those are some nice process improvements. Now I'm going to shut up. Other thoughts that are out there?
I think like I'm just gonna like name what was in the chat that I put. Like I think when we get a clear idea and maybe this work is happening in the group of figuring out what is that area. So that's like the first thing, just like wanted to announce that like we're happy to take the language and whether we draft it in this group and whether that's beyond the scope of like what state agency partners are comfortable doing, or we need like a separate non-state agency kind of like to take a stab at a draft and like bring it to the group. Like that could be a product that we work on, I think in the near like future, because sounds like that's going to be something that we need to do. And then we're happy to take that and lead with our other partners that can do advocacy work to help get that language updated, because it feels a little pigeonholed at the moment. And I'm also curious on like the places that we're looking to possibly grow to. Like, I'm also curious on where that touches or overlaps with SNAC. That just doesn't make sense because SNAC's already doing some of that work.
Right.
And obviously, like, SNAC is probably just limited to our state agencies. So to your, like, Jason, to your point, like, there's other, entities that are working in that aren't getting involved in the SNAC in maybe a way that they could. And then the last piece of just like, Aaron, to your point about like, does that coordination happen? Like, I would say, I can say Pinnacle, we meet every year with Food Bank Network to kind of lay out policy priorities across agencies that we are aware of. So like, if we don't know about them, we can't coordinate, but we do try to like make that happen of like, how can we be strategic? Like, we can't ask for double up the same year that we're asking for, reduced price meals to be waived. Like, that's not going to make sense for advocates and for across different budget asks, especially as we're, in our current budget state that we are in. So I think like it does happen across groups, but again, not in this space, because I know it just doesn't feel like there's, like that's I think, Gloria, it's something that you already said, like, we can spend time in this space, but then food banks will get it in a month. And that's like what happens. Like, we have one meeting and we plan about that. And maybe we should bring that back and say, like, here's what we're talking about. But there is a space where that's happening with groups that can do direct advocacy. So whether that's just like us and Food Bank Network that I think are doing some of that higher level agency strategizing with like budgets that's within our scope of things that we know. And then we also do have like our anti-hunger food systems advocacy call, which has like all of the kind of other advocacy groups. So definitely like happening in other spaces. So I think it comes to the question, like, what is the gap that HAC is going to be filling? And Jason, like like constant, like, what do you want to work on? What do you guys want to work on? It's like, well, we're here to serve at the pleasure of you, director. So like, what are the things that we can inform? And maybe it's just in this moment of time because we just happen to have a director who is like very well versed in this and curious on what modifying the language or what that could, or like in a situation where we don't have a director that has that kind of background, where like this kind of channel is better utilized. So it could just be like, we're at a point in time where we're like, we're actually not needed as much because we just happen to be in a good place at the moment. And again, we can still update language and all of those things, but those are like the things that just wanted to like respond to that were like jumbling around in my head. So I think we could do it better, Aaron, to your point, like we could definitely do things better. Happy to like start working on some language if that's of interest to the group to make it more broad, but then how does that complement SNAC? So those are
right
high points of my ramble.
And just to hop in,
please.
Sorry. My only big concern really, heading into next session and looking at revising any language is always being very cautious of the bill process and the unintended consequences of kind of once you start unwrapping something, if you don't have a direct ask with, the appropriate data attached to it, kind of the concern of things getting lost or misplaced or, money being moved around, especially with our current financial state as, what I mean? Dollars are, $1 means a lot to the state right now, and I think we're going to see next year, especially if we can kind of get out of where we are budget wise, and our state's able to kind of hold on to those dollars so we can continue the financial state past the 3-year project without ending with a zero balance. That's going to be really important. So I have concerns going into next year, especially after this election. We know that there's going to be a lot of education going down on our part from the Arizona Food Bank Network on making sure that new lawmakers are up to speed, and we're also connecting with staff members. So when they have questions on anything related to hunger, they kind of know who to go to. And so, Jason, I think you kind of touched on something really important earlier about, what Maricopa County is doing and how many people your county is serving alone. And possibly uplifting more counties in this space, I think would really be important to get a better idea, especially in the rural parts of Arizona, really how much the counties are doing to assist the state and, populations as a whole, especially in areas that might have different waivers for certain programs. So we know, right now we have a voluntary EMT state for SNAP, and that is something that kind of goes back to the legislator every few years. We do expect that to go back again next year, and making sure that the counties are understanding kind of why the support on certain issues is especially important for them when they have certain waivers in place. Sorry, that's my ramble. But I guess my biggest concern really going into next session is, unwrapping some sort of legislation without having really concrete pieces to replace. And just being concerned that, if we don't go in with the concrete places, we might end up with nothing. And I think that's kind of an important piece to keep in mind.
Excellent thoughts, Jessica. That's wonderful. Other thoughts, other questions, other ideas? This is a fantastic conversation. What else?
I want to just acknowledge too what I put in the chat just for and answer any questions. I think it's been like half joke, half like really serious. Like I can't retire until we figure out how Hack and Snack align. It's been like for the last like 7 years. I'm like, I'm gonna figure it out how like Hack and Snack work together. We're not there yet, so I can't retire yet. I also don't have quite enough years of state service. But
I was about to say retirement. Who's retiring around here? Oh my goodness. No,
well, my
anyway.
work will be done when I can finally say we figured out Hack and
I love
Snack,
it.
but I'm not going anywhere.
Perfect.
But I think what I have over the years tried to really drill down and be able to help us understand is, SNAC is an action committee that has work groups that are intended to work on projects that help align the work of our agencies, because we all work with USDA nutrition programs. Whether you're at ADE, ADHS, or DES, we all work with USDA FNS. And, the work is really trying to say, what are we doing here and how do we better serve the population we serve, because they're all the same family? How do we make sure they all know about their cross eligibility? How do we know we're speaking with consistent voice? How do we know that they're all, we're promoting SFSP in the same way, right? And so SNAC has really served the purpose of really zeroing in on or kind of narrowing in on USDA nutrition program alignment across our local partners. And the action happens in work groups that are coordinated by a steering committee. And I think that is pretty distinct. While like the acronyms are close, SNAC and HACK, that feels very distinct from a legislated advisory council on issues of hunger. And so I always am like, I know at a minimum I can say like HACK is doing this or is intended to do this and SNAC is intended to do that. And so in some ways I'm like, maybe I am really hearing the idea also of like maybe the project, if you will. I think that sometimes it's helpful to have a project, though we don't want to add more work to everyone's plates. But like, is part of what HACK could do is work on developing some of those communication materials. Here's what's happening in Maricopa County. Like, and I think someone else, it might have been Jessica or Jesse, mentioned like making sure the counties are more represented. Here's what's happening in Yuma County. Here's what's happening in La Paz. So that we have an understanding of what's happening in the counties, and HACK is the place where that is brought to light across all of our state agencies and across counties. There's food banks in each of those in the counties. Like, I know I'm not as familiar as I could be with the work happening on the food bank side in the various counties. Or, I only know a handful of the county health department work that's happening related to SNAP Ed, which might be different from, the work that Maricopa is doing, Jason, in your office. So maybe one of the things we work on is that increased awareness, coordination of like who's doing what where as a HACK project potentially.
Yeah, I like that. Gloria, you have your hand raised. I have some thoughts on that too, but Gloria, please talk.
So, Aaron, great point. I think, something that we're working on right now in CCSD in our new division is mapping exactly what you just asked, right? So we are mapping, and I know Laura's on the call, and I know we are in very beginning stages of identifying where the services are and where our gaps. So we're mapping out all of hunger relief. We're mapping out all of where the public information for domestic violence shelters is homeless shelters. So we're working on a map for CCSD, at least for Joanne's program. So Joanne is my new supervisor overseeing homeless, hunger, and then OIV domestic violence programs, and then the CAPS program. So we're working on a map right now that we can certainly probably talk about or share in our next hack meeting. But I think it's very important. It's what I try to say, but maybe I don't say it. We're all working in same projects, but let's communicate and see how we can collectively all work together in the same project, right? Or be aware and not duplicate effort. So we are working on something that we will probably be able to share more in January to identify, to let you know where is their food banks, where's their distribution sites, where is their home delivered meals, where is their farmers market. So yes, April, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to break down the silos. So go ahead, Mr. Jason.
Okay, so I thank you, Gloria, and I love maps. I get irrationally excited about maps. So I would love to see that. So that kind of sparked an idea, and I'm going to start to wrap us up in this conversation because I'm doing a little bit of a time check. And again, I love the fact that we're having this conversation. I love the passion behind it. It is like Aaron. You know, the day that I leave Hack is when we figure it out, some of these questions. So until then, it's year 9 or whatever like that I haven't been involved in or something like that. So I have no idea. Time is a construct. So I'm hearing kind of like, so beyond some of the ideas and some of the suggestions that have come through here, I want to focus in on I think all of them are good. And I want to focus on maybe like 2 I'm hearing opportunities that could maybe come up with what I'm hearing. Please push back if you're not hearing this. I do like the idea of having an exploratory, potentially a dedicated meeting around potential changes to the language of the legislation. Okay. If we're going to go down that road, that's going to have to happen before January. Just because of timing. And again, there's way better experts in this table that know this stuff better than I do. But it just seems like if we even want to go down that possibility, and even thinking through, as Jessica was kind of indicating, like the pluses and minuses of going down that, but it would be kind of curious to see, because it's one to be like, we should change the legislation. And if anyone would ever say to what, we need to have an answer, right? Because I think that would be important. Okay, so I hear that as one immediate, like within the next month or 2, or maybe like an end of November, beginning of December kind of conversation in that space potentially. The second thing, thank you very much, Abraham. And I think that the second thing as an opportunity I'm hearing, I think it's just kind of piggybacking on what Gloria you were talking about with the maps. A potential project that I haven't really necessarily heard us do before, or if we have done it, it's been a while, is actually do kind of like a map deep dive of hunger and the activities, even related to snack, in a geographic area of the state of Arizona. So where I'm going with this is like, how about if we just focus in on, say, I don't know, starting off with like northern Arizona. Okay, and we can even identify counties where that impacts, and then like what are the activities, what are the issues, what are the data points that we need to like lift up, right? And just really kind of deep dive in those kind of things, and perhaps that is something to help us understand like what's happening in local organizations, what's happening with those respective, interdepartmental and state agencies, even with school districts, even maybe on some of those tribal nations, for example. Maybe that's an opportunity to deep dive that we can kind of peel back and really kind of get into that, because we can also invite folks to come and talk with us about that issue so we can learn in that space. That is me thinking out loud with some ideas. Feedback. Thoughts? Is that the worst idea you've ever heard in your life? I take criticism very, very well. What do y'all think as far as those 2 kind of concepts?
The one on the session for the bill, I would
Yeah.
say that if it is something for 2025, the priority would really need to be starting now, in order to look at that language, identify who a sponsor would be, the potential kind of pushbacks that we might have, how quickly it could move through session, and kind of mapping out that entire process and who would be leading it. So I would suggest, if that is something for 2025, that be moved up. We obviously won't have a lot of answers until, probably at earliest the week after the election. But I would definitely, please, if you could include Ashley on that. I just saw Gloria's message in the chat. But I definitely think that would be something that, we would want to start. It would need to start now.
Thank you, Jessica.
Just timing.
No, Jessica, you know this stuff better than I do, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Other thoughts on those two ideas?
If a map was to be created of hunger and food insecurity relief across the state, I would just be curious as to how to not be duplicative in that, because I feel like there's a lot of agencies working towards those. And then also how to make it more of a live document, because the saying, as soon as you create a map or a document, it's outdated.
Right.
And then my last thought on that is how to partner with the agencies directly doing that work. Coming from our lens, we're just wrapping up a food equity report for Northeastern Arizona specifically. So, and I imagine especially, well, this is just a guess, but based off of what Michelle had said earlier, that they're doing something similar in the southern region of the state. So how we could, collaborate on that effort.
I love that. Okay. Anything else? All right. It's 5-2. Excellent conversation. I think that we have a lot to start with. Okay. And between these conversations, and I agree, Gloria, the applause and the gratitude to everyone, and I really appreciate not just the wonderful ideas and the thoughtfulness that goes into this, but all joking aside, with Aaron, to kind of pick on your comment, I really appreciate the tenacity for so many of us that have been having these conversations again and again and again, and even Gloria, I really appreciate it. It's really, we always need to keep asking ourselves, what is the great value that we have to the people that we are honored to serve and the constituents that we are honored to serve, and also just the honor of working with each other in this space. Okay, and that is not a static thing. There's always, it's change. That's just part of human services. It's part of hunger relief. It's a constant thing that's always being reevaluated. So I just want to thank everyone for your continued passion and brilliance on this. So thank you. So
Jason, I'm gonna say something really quick that one of my team members said a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago. I forgot already what day of the week is. It's Friday, right?
I have no idea. Yeah.
And hunger is real time. We cannot wait on a lot of stuff. So I think updating the verbiage on the bill is crucial for me in order to help support HAC in the future, right? Because we are changing. So I've been here for 20 years and counting, Mr. Jason. I will continue to be here and grow and expand our services. Summer, thank you very much for your input and your feedback regarding the mapping. We are definitely considering that, and Laura Walsh on my team and Marina Quiroz are also very engaged in mapping to understand where our gaps are, and we are working with other divisions within our DES, and then also we're very involved with other state agencies. So appreciate your feedback. And Jason, thank you so much. Aaron, thank you. Everybody, thank you for this great meeting. I think it was a really good meeting. Thank you.
I agree. And Gloria, I don't think you're allowed to retire. I think they were chaining you to your desk or something. Is that true?
I don't
No?
know. I was gone for 2 months, and my team did amazing. So we started to say this is Gloria's hunger program. I don't
No,
think
okay.
Gloria's hunger program anymore. I think they manage it very well. So, but I'm not planning to go anywhere. We have a lot of work to do and a lot of programs to expand and get out to get the services where they need to be. So we'll be more than excited. I know my team is probably shrugging their shoulders like what, but we'll be more than excited to share what we have been doing in January. And there's been a lot of stuff, a lot of work has been happening on the coordination side for Marina, working very closely with the Pinnacle Prevention team and the Arizona Food Bank Network team. So they've done a lot of amazing work. So we'll share more in January, and then we'll also share about our new division in January. So thank you very much.
That's great. Well, thank you, Gloria. I appreciate you and appreciate all the staff that are on this call. With that, we're going to start. We're going to move forward into our agenda. We're now at kind of our, I think it's our roundtable or public forum kind of space. I'm going to open it up. If anyone would like to share anything that's happening at their agency that they want to pass along, now is the time to do that. April, yes.
In case you haven't received the invitation, we are having a informational forum in person at the Phoenix office on November 12th. And Director Rogers will be talking about and doing a demonstration of the A to Z Arizona portal. And you guys have probably seen it with Kellyanne, but this will be a live demonstration. And if you're not in the Phoenix area, we do have a virtual option as well. So if you haven't received that invitation and you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me, or if you don't have my info, Gloria, and she can get you to me.
Perfect. April, thank you for sharing that. I have not seen that invitation come through. If you can forward it over, it might be something that I would be happy to share with some. We have some new folks, especially on our team that should be in that room. So I appreciate that. So perfect. Any other announcements from other folks?
Okay. And Abe, before you share that, we do have a slight change. So I'll get you the new invitation once it's approved. We've sort of changed the agenda a little bit. So, well, I'd also like to share that we are also still doing our resource partner sessions, which it's a 2-hour session for any of our community partners, their staff that want to know a little bit more about the major programs in DES. And thank you, Abe. And we do sort of how to navigate the website, provide contact information for folks, and then desk aid and lots of other information. So if you've got staff that you want to have more information other than just the hunger programs, again, reach out to me and be happy to get that information out to you. Thanks, Jason.
Of course. Thank you. All right. Any other announcements?
I have one, and just kind of a call to attention, I guess. One is that just keep your eyes out. We are finishing up. Oh no, the hound might start barking. So just a warning. We are finishing up a Northern Arizona food equity report that we've been creating for the big part of this year that just goes into hunger and food insecurity across northeastern Arizona, both from public data that y'all probably know, but then also direct community conversations we've been having both with our clientele and the broader community. Then on that, one of the reasons we've created that document is that we are creating a new department within the organization that's really largely focused on root causes of hunger and food insecurity. And so if there's any specific ways you see us supporting you all or your agency in that, in either representing Northern Arizona in these regards or just getting ground on knowledge or any of that, please reach out and let us know. We're kind of going to be building that strategic plan this last quarter, so would love to hear kind of statewide input.
That's great. Yeah, I think Summer, I know that I'd be interested in seeing when that that information is available, and I know that I'm sure a lot of us would love to dive into that. So that's wonderful work, and congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment as well. Other things to share out from anyone else? All right, here going once.
Actually, Jason, I was just thinking about the timing. I know.
No, it's good. That's why I do the countdown, because you never know. Go ahead.
Just a quick heads up. I was like, oh, will I be able to share this in January? But that might be too late. So for those who are working with community-based organizations, our AZ Health Zone, RFGA, it will be posted in mid-November. And that is for fiscal years 26 through 30. So we'll open in November. I'm not sure how long it will be open, but it is for a 5-year grant cycle to administer SNAP Ed in local communities. So just putting on the radar that that is coming out. If you know of anyone who's interested in applying or participating in SNAP Ed at an organizational level and as a local agency, have them kind of keep an eye out for that coming in November.
Thank you for sharing that, Erin. That's great. Jessica, wonderful. Yeah, those friendly reminder that Monday is the last day to mail in your ballots. I'll also note that working in Maricopa County and all of our wonderful elections, if you know of someone who is volunteering or working at the elections department, no matter you are in the state, please give them a hug. Ask for it first. Ask for consent first. Don't just grab them, because that's always weird. But like, they really deserve it. Those folks have just been working their tails off. And I know that there's been a lot of even efforts within our organization here, in which a lot of volunteers from other departments are coming and helping out before election day and also the night of. It's like they're really ramping up just to help with the huge surge of things. But we really appreciate all those folks that are dedicating that time for such an important part of our society, is having some safe elections and making sure that they can happen without incident. So yeah, they are heroes, and is an understatement. That is absolutely true. So anything else?
This is more of a comment towards Erin's announcement. Erin, this is my small little plug. If there's a way for any of those local implementing agencies to align any of their plans, or maybe there's an opportunity for us to chat about ideas for aligning their plans for SNAP Ed work, just noting that LFPA and LFS both got extensions. So at least I'm guessing for probably the first 2 to 3 years of those plans, there's going to be, lots of farm to school work happening, because there's going to be, and, thinking about, and I'm just, so if there's an opportunity to plug for those, I know that the SNAP Ed groups across the state have been critical partners, but that funding came out after those 5-year plans were submitted. So if there's an opportunity to align some of that work for both nutrition education opportunities, but also just connecting some of those community partners and moving some of that food around the state. I think there's, I know that Shelby from our team, I think, is going to a chat in November to do a presentation on try to aligning some of those plans around it. But anyways, that's just my nudge of hey, there's going to be work happening across the state in these 2 programs for at least the next 3 years. So it feels like a nice time to align plans.
Perfect. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate that. All right, and then my last little plug, and this is just wearing my volunteer hat. I think many of you know, but I've been a master gardener with the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension here in Maricopa County for I think like 6 years or something like that. I have no time, understanding of time. But anyways, tomorrow, if you're in the Phoenix area, the fall plant sale is at Metro Tech High School. It's at Thomas and 19th Avenue. All cultivated plants from volunteers, and all the proceeds go back to the programs. Most of these plants that even I don't have a chance to kill them because they're usually cultivated pretty well. So highly recommend them. But it's a really great feel-good thing. It starts at 8. I think it goes to about like 12 or 12:30 or something like that. But if you have an itching to get that a fall and winter garden going, it's a wonderful place to pick up some starters and all that great stuff like that. It's also, it's just a fun little community event, and so it's really fun. Metro Tech High School tomorrow, starting at 8 o'clock to about noon. It's a good time. So, with that, anything else? Okay. With that, it is 2:09 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn our meeting for today. Thank you all again very much for your time and your attention and your brilliance. We will chat soon as far as things that are coming up. But with that, have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
Hi, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Too. Take care.